Wow. Wow. I can't believe I'm here today. Do this video. It's been such a long time coming, probably over a year since I had set out to do these videos. Last year was crazy. I don't even know. So, hey guys, welcome back. I'm here to continue on with the Buffy and Books series that I had set out to do a long time ago. I apologize for people who were watching those videos and who enjoyed them that I have taken so long to put out the next episode. If you would like to go back and recap what has happened, where we're at, I will leave those videos in the description box below. But where we're at, this is season 2, part 3. We are covering episodes 15 through 22. Episodes 21 and 22 have one book for the 2-part episode because that was the finale episode. It was so massive and there was so much happening that they just kind of did a part 1 and part 2. So I ended up just choosing one book to encapsulate that extended episode. Episode 15, Phases. I don't think that this episode needs a whole lot of explanation because this is the episode where Willow discovers that Oz is a werewolf and she is ready to take the next step with Oz, and Oz suddenly has become a little bit distant from her. He's kind of pushing her away, and so she, with Buffy's advice, kind of marches over there to his house and bangs on his doors and like demands that he tell her what is going on, because she has felt that everything is giving her the green light and suddenly he's acting really weird and it's driving her crazy. But in the middle of her monologue, he starts going through changes and he's like, you need to leave, like my problems are bigger than yours. And then right there on the spot, he turns into a werewolf. What else happens during this episode is that there is actually a hunter. There is more to this episode as well. These Scoobies are investigating a grisly crime, and they're speaking to their students who might be the culprit. Xander ends up getting stuck with the obnoxious brute who objectifies women. Through Xander's third degree, he gets him to admit that he is gay. And now this character also thinks that Xander is gay. And I just think that that was kind of funny storyline. The book I chose for this is going to be a classic werewolf transformation story called Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison, about a woman named Rory who grudgingly moves back home to her hometown to help her pregnant sister who is estranged from the baby's father. Rory also runs into an old fling and some stories from her past kind of crop up. One night when she's on her way home, she hits something in the road, and when she goes to investigate it, it like attacks her, and then she begins to go through some changes. I actually really like the simplicity of this story. We didn't try to do anything different, didn't try to deviate from just a traditional werewolf transformation story. This book involved family and relationships, and it just felt really grounded in some way. It felt almost refreshing just to have something so just not trying to blow your mind with being too unique. You know what I'm saying? No flashy, dramatic tales of magic, no mixing supernatural species, no big long series to have to follow after. I feel like this book also just matches Oz as a person as well because he's just very straightforward. He is once characterized as being monosyllabic and just no bells and whistles, you know, just straightforward character. So I felt that this book was a perfect pairing for this episode. Episode 16, Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered. It's Valentine's Day in Sunnydale and the secret is out that Cordelia and Xander have been having a fling. Cordy's pathetic group of girlfriends has made her feel really ashamed for dating him, and so she breaks up with him. Well, do you remember a certain teen witch from last season? Well, Xander hunts her down and blackmails her into helping him with a little spell, a love spell, which goes horribly wrong. Suddenly, all the women in Sunnydale, except for Cordelia, want a piece of Xander, and they want him all to themselves. It's absolute chaos. Buffy gets turned into a rat. Willow tries to axe murder Xander, and Drusilla tries to give him eternal life. Through all of this chaos, Cordelia realizes that all of this was for her because he just cared for her so much. So she decides to tell her friends off. I love what she says to Harmony, because Harmony, if you know, any conversation with Harmony is just like, did you literally just say that? Like, she is so dumb. So Cordelia tells Harmony off. She tells Harmony that she is way cooler than her, and she doesn't care that even if her boyfriend is lame, she's going to date him anyways. I feel like there's two very different ways to go about this episode. One did outwin the other, but one way to go about this is just the ridiculous scenarios, the utter chaos, the hilarious, the humorous side of this story. And then the other side would be the obsession, potentially a harem story, which might be fun. But seeing as how I don't really read harem stories, I don't have any to compare this to. But the obsession of being the object of female obsession. I really like both angles of this, but I'm gonna go with the first one, and the book I chose for this is The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling. This is a perfect pairing because Vivian, our main character, gets her heart broken. She did the whole sad music, moping, drunken bubble bath hex many years ago, so long ago, and she just thought it was silly and just absolutely kind of forgot about it until this guy moves back home to perform a magical duty for his family. See, the magic system in this book is that the town rests on these ley lines, and he is one of the founding families of witches that kind of run this town. The duty falls upon him to kind of recharge these ley lines. Well, when he does the magical mojo, things just go utterly wrong. Chaos ensues, and putting two to two together, everything bad just seems to be happening to this guy. And he's just like, oh my god, I've got to be cursed. What is happening? And that's when Vivian is like, oh shit. I think I know what's happening here. Yeah, they end up figuring things out. But granted, this book was a very feel-good, magical rom-com, and that's not usually my go-to, but I've had a lot of fun with this book, and I do think that this book fits this episode so well. Episode 17, Passion. Angel, if you know, kind of as a little bit of a recap, Angel and Buffy had intimate relations. Angel lost his soul. He is now targeting everyone in Buffy's life, and Buffy believes that her mother Joyce is going to be Angel's next target. After his terror campaign, he hits close to home. Meanwhile, Jenny attempts to repair her relationship with Giles, and this ends so tragically. And I want to say that this is one of the very worst. Yeah, it really does feel like it's one of the worst deaths in TV. The book that I have for this is probably not the most devastating and heart-wrenching character death in my personal opinion, but I feel like so many other things make this the perfect pairing for this, because other readers of this book, I feel like, do feel like this is a very tragic, gut-wrenching book. Character death in this book series. Alright, struggling to articulate myself just a little bit. The Assassin's Blade. This includes 5 short stories. These are the prequel stories to Throne of Glass. So you meet a completely different Selena in this series than you do in Throne of Glass. And in Throne of Glass, you are introduced to a past love that Selena had lost. And this gives you that backstory. So it's not until you get to the very end story where this book concludes itself. You do need all of these stories to get to know this character. This follows Selena Sardothian and her kind of co-worker Sam, and they do end up falling in love. Sam and Selena work for a very cruel leader, and Selena didn't know how cruel this man could be. He raised her, he saved her life and raised her up and gave her a job, even if it's not always on the up and up, and a family because she had lost hers. So she falls in love with Sam, but then she and Sam are asked to do a job that she does not agree with. She morally feels that she cannot go through with this. She goes against Arabin, this leader of this kind of pirate group. Is a pirate group? Assassin's group. Well, this pisses him off, and he ends up hurting her in the worst way possible, and it's really the timing of everything as well, which is really the key aspect here, and why this story aligns perfectly with Passion, because Selena and Sam were getting everything in line. They had the money, they had the place, they were going to leave Arabin, they were going to run away together, they were going to finally be free. And at that moment, Arabin kills Sam, and it was just such a vindictive act. That is exactly what has happened in Passion, because just as Giles and Jenny were going to start repairing their relationship, because their relationship was at odds because Jenny knew something about why Angel was the way that he was. Buffy and Giles together, their team, they quit talking to Jenny because they just felt so betrayed. I mean, she had this whole long history of knowing that she was a gypsy part, and she was there to watch Angel and everything else, and none of this was said, so they felt so betrayed and lied to. Buffy does go to Giles and to Jenny and says, you know what, just because I'm so sad, y'all don't need to be sad. Like, she kind of gives the green light that she's not going to hold it against them if they want to have their relationship. It's not really their fault, you know what I'm saying? So Giles was going over there to see Jenny, and Angel leaves a care package for Giles to find Jenny, and it's just heart-wrenching. And then just like Selena, Giles decides to go seek his revenge. So yeah, I think these two are perfect pairing together. Episode 18, Killed by Death. Buffy meets a boy who's experiencing nightmares from her past and present. Cordelia is jealous of Xander's attempt to protect Buffy. Buffy comes down with the flu, and she becomes hospitalized. Buffy feels so responsible for what had happened to Jenny, and so she just does not rest. She's hunting for Angel every chance that she gets, and she's just at wit's end. He obviously is being intentionally evasive because of just how sad she is and all these terrible tragedies that have happened in her life. She does come down with the flu. Hospital, I mean, not because the flu is going around, and I think that because of how sad she is and everything, you know, it makes her more susceptible to getting sick. So Buffy comes down with the flu. She is hospitalized, and in her delirium, she sees a monster that has been preying on the children in the hospital, and it attacks them through fear. This really hits home for her in new ways. We learn why she is terrified of going to hospitals. She believes that this is the same monster that killed her cousin. And one of the suspects is actually a doctor who's been administering drugs to these kids, experimental drugs to these kids. So we're dealing with themes of illness, doctors, experimental drugs, and monsters. This was kind of hard because I kept thinking in terms of supernatural and monsters, but arguably all of the monsters through this series are symbols of real life monsters and struggles and choices that we have to make. So when I thought about this book, I felt that there was no better pairing that actually includes the most themes of this episode, called 6 Feet Apart. And that is also because I don't think I've read many like medical dramas. So my personal collection, my personal selection of books with themes like this is fairly slim, but of the books that I have read, I felt that 6 Feet Apart was a good one for this. In this book, you have two patients who suffer with the same chronic disease. They live their lives in and out of hospitals. One kid is just tired of fighting, and he's trying an experimental drug. He really doesn't follow all the rules that the nurses give him for getting better, which is really scary. It puts him at a lot of risk. The other character, the female character, because this, at the end of the day, this book is a romance, which doesn't exactly fit this episode, but the other one is a force of positive thinking and fighting by spreading awareness of this condition through her YouTube channel and sharing vlogs of what her everyday life looks like. This book particularly takes place during a lengthy hospital stay and the relationships that they build with the other patients. This does end up being a love story and gives our character who feels like giving up a reason to fight because he falls in love with the spunky character who is constantly fighting and inspires him to also want to fight. He also inspires her to kind of bend the rules a little bit, and that's where the title comes from, because they're always saying stay 6 feet apart. If you remember, during COVID, it was stay 6 feet apart, but she ends up bending the rules just a little bit, and she's like, okay, I'll give you 5 feet apart. I really liked this book for this pairing because this does take place during a hospital stay. The characters all being patients together with similar conditions, the relationships and the activities that they do together while they're in the hospital, and the tragedy of watching death claim them, the fear that comes from when their illness may take a turn for the worse, and the concept, while in Buffy, the monster may be a symbol for the fight for life versus the monster that comes in the middle of the night, invisible to grown-ups, that takes them in the night. Episode 19, I Only Have Eyes for You. This one was not particularly a favorite of mine, but I see so many themes in it now that I really look at this episode. In this episode, you have the ghost of a former teacher and a student who were romantically involved. It just so happens that the Sadie Hawkins dance is the anniversary of their death, and so on this night, they come back to haunt the halls and relive out their last moments by possessing the bodies of students and acting it out. So students are dying. I think that the most obvious theme in this one is teacher-student relationships, and the book that I have for this is My Dark Vanessa. This book was really good. I feel that it really characterizes, it is kind of during the whole Me Too movement, which I'm not going to go into my complex feelings on the Me Too movement, but I felt that this book was really a breath of fresh air within that whole narrative, because this book really highlighted a lot of the nuances of these relationships. So in My Dark Vanessa, it follows a girl who gets involved with an instructor, and she's always loved him. She's always held him on this pedestal. Then she becomes entangled with him again because he comes up in a lawsuit of having an inappropriate relationship with a student, very much like the relationship she was in. And she never really confronted the fact that that was wrong. It was abusive. He took advantage of her until this comes to light. And so she keeps having flashbacks to their whole relationship and the things that he said and how she felt in those moments, and how their falling out happened, and the fact that throughout the years he has been in other relationships much like hers. And so I think that she then becomes aware of the fact that it was wrong, and she now suddenly, many years later, it changes for her, and it's like almost devastating. You know what I'm saying? I thought this book was absolutely incredible. Pretty important book as well. So a little bit sillier episode next, because we've had a couple of pretty sad episodes. So episode 20 is called Go Fish, and this follows Xander as he goes undercover with the swim team to help Buffy catch a sea monster that has been dispatching members of the Sunnydale High School swim team. And one thing I really love about this episode is that Cordelia and Xander have been dating, and Cordelia is like, I think I really love him and everything. And when they find out what has been creating these sea monsters, Cordelia sees one of these monsters in the pool, and she starts talking to the sea monster as if he is Xander, and Xander comes out and is like, "That's really nice, Cordy, but that's not me." And so she freaks out and they run away. That's one really funny scene, and I thought it was really cute. Like, this is the part where I really start to like Cordelia. So I thought that was a really funny scene. And then another one that is absolutely diabolical, that is incredibly funny, is the Scooby Gang has been going around school interviewing other students to see what they know about this potential sea monster or what's going on with the swim team. And they talk to, what is his name? Jonathan. I think Buffy was the one that was supposed to talk to Jonathan. So they're sitting on the bleachers about to watch the practice and everything like that. And they're like, "Oh, what did you find out about Jonathan?" She goes, "Oh, nothing. He just peed in the pool." And then Xander jumps in the pool. And they're all just like, "Ooh." It's so funny. I don't know why. I just thought that was such a funny scene. This is a pretty fun, lighthearted episode. The book that I have for this is not so much a book, but it is a short story. And it is called Head, Scales, Tongue, Tail by Leigh Bardugo. It was included in an anthology short story book collection called Summer Days and Summer Nights, 12 Love Stories. And this was such a great collection. I loved most of the stories in this. I would reread it every summer if I didn't have a lot of other things to read, I guess. I would suggest probably rereading this over summer. But this story was really fun. I'll be honest, it was a really long time since I read this, so I don't remember the intricacies. All I know it is like a Swamp Thing monster creature feature, so it fit really, really good. I immediately thought of this story when I was putting together this video. And the finale, this is episodes 21 and 22, Becoming Part 1 and 2. As I said, I chose one book for this episode, or this double episode, because you can't really separate the two. You know what I mean? We're following Angel. He's evil. He wants to end the world, and he is attempting to awaken a Cathla, which is this demon. Well, it's this stone statue. And if they can awaken him, he will annihilate the planet. Goody. So Buffy reluctantly decides to destroy her former lover. Meanwhile, Willow unlocks a secret. Other things that are happening in this episode. So she also forms a very unlikely alliance with Spike. Because ever since Angel has come back, he has been taunting him most cruelly with his girlfriend Drusilla. And Spike has been unsure about this whole situation, so he has been in a wheelchair, because Spike is a very calculated character. He's so clever and smart, and so he likes to play things out and see how it's going to play out. So he doesn't tell them when he can walk again. He wants them to underestimate him, and so he uses this opportunity. He feels that this is the time when, he needs to go ahead and come out of his shell. So yeah, he is not too happy with Angel. He also, when he goes to Buffy for her help, she is just like, what is happening? You tried to kill me, and you tried to kill Giles, and like all these things. Like, why the heck would I team up with you? And his explanation for this is really great. He's like, because you know what? I like this world. I like cigarettes. I like music. I don't want it to go. He's like, I like humans walking around like Happy Meals, or I forgot exactly what he says, but he's talking about how, humans, the food and all this stuff, and very, very, very convincing. So they do end up teaming up together. And I really liked that scene. I just think it's so funny. So there's a lot of themes going on in this book. We have this one theme, like when you get to the very, very end, the lasting scene of this, when Buffy wins the fight and Angel regains his humanity, but unfortunately it was just too late. She did have to stop the awakening. Yeah. So the awakening would suck the whole world into hell, okay? So unfortunately, before he got his humanity back, Angel opened this doorway, and it's slowly starting to expand, and he doesn't see this behind him. So she sees that Angel gets his humanity, but he doesn't know what he did. And so she has to push him back through the portal in order to close it. So this destroys her. So we have this theme of humanity when Angel regains his humanity. And I really feel that this theme, this constant struggle within Angel, his character book would probably be the picture of Dorian Gray, which I do kind of want to return to this idea. And I say that even though it just seems like it's taking an eternity to put these videos together, but I do kind of think that it would be fun to return to this idea of doing book pairings for each character. Some other themes is that we have this boyfriend who turns violent. Now we've already been down that route with when Angel first loses his soul, but it's still very much a present theme in this, because now he has gone from being evil angel to regaining his humanity again and being good, and she kisses him. And so I mean, their whole relationship is very symbolic of a very abusive relationship as well. The boyfriend who just keeps turning on and off the mean guy, the nice guy switch, and she falls for it every time because she's so in love with him. Then we have the girl who has to save the world kind of theme going on. Girl who has to sacrifice her greatest love to save the world. And the girl who must stop the world from being sucked into hell. Very Throne of Glassy, I think, regarding the Vogue. The book that I ended up settling on for this was Shadow and Bone. Really the series, because it isn't until the very end of the series where you have to go through that whole journey to see why this series matches this finale season as well. And I don't want to spoil the book or anything like that, but it has something to do with the sacrifice that our main character ends up choosing to make, and what that sacrifice means to her and everything else. Like, so it's not just one book, it's like this whole series. Like, you have to have the whole series in order to see why Shadow and Bone series is such a perfect pairing for this episode, or this dual episode. And that finishes up season 2, and hopefully it won't take me a year and a half to get around to publishing and getting into season 3. Again, if you would like to check out the other videos in this series, I will leave the playlist down below in the description box. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this, and we'll see you soon. Bye.